I've been wanting to play through Johto again with a type you don't see too much in those games, so today I'm trying my hand at a Pokemon SoulSilver Hardcore Nuzlocke using only Steel types. And I know what you're thinking, there's only 5 Steel types available to you in Johto, and the first one's found after the 3rd gym. Well, you see, I've found a way around that issue, and I'll show you in just a sec. But the rules I'll be following in this challenge are, of course, first off, the standard Nuzlocke rules, where fainted Pokemon must be permanently boxed, and we only get the first Steel type or Pokemon that evolves into one in any area. Then we've got the hardcore rules where battle mode must be played on set at all times, no items can be used in battle except for held items, and we can't overlevel the next gym leader's highest level Pokemon. So let's see if I can beat one of my favorite games with one of my favorite types. Naturally, I start my adventure by naming myself Axel, and it's then time to pick my very first Pokemon, and I pick Chikorita so that my rival gets Cyndaquil. After that, of course, we have to name our rival.
My name is Jeff.
And this is the part where we can actually start getting Steel types, and I know there aren't any on Route 29 or 30, but we can get some if we catch a Pokemon and are able to use the Pokewalker. That's right, this little accessory that you got with the game that your boy rocked every day to school back in the day. And on the Pokewalker, there's an event route called Winner's Path that you can access as soon as you catch a Pokemon if you have it. And yeah, this event was available in 2010, but I do actually have it on my actual SoulSilver cartridge. And since we're finding them on the Pokewalker, I'm considering both of them static encounters, and come on, Beldum and Bronzor, when am I ever gonna get to use that in SoulSilver again? So here they are. First off, we've got Palladium the Beldum with a hardy nature and the awesome event moves of Zen Headbutt, Iron Head, and Iron Defense. Then we've got Beryllium the Calm Bronzor with Heat Proof and the event move Trick Room. And I gotta say, it does look pretty awesome to walk around with Beldum in this game. Youngster Joey, say your prayers. And not soon after Youngster Joey's fall, we have to face off against Falkner, and as you know, the first 3 gym leaders, we're just gonna have to use Beryllium and Palladium. And listen, Falkner's never that difficult. Pidgey just goes down to 1 Iron Head, and his Pidgeotto likes to be annoying and use Roost, but even it goes down after just a couple Iron Heads. I mean, Steel does resist normal and flying, so nobody was scared of that one. Anyway, after the gym, we meet this girl who tells us she names her Pokemon after the foods she enjoys eating. Nice to meet you, Chicken Fajita. We can also talk to this guy who gives us the move for Rock Smash, which we can now use to smash these rocks in the ruins of Alph to gather ourselves as many shards as possible. After that, we can go back towards the Pokemon Center and trade all our shards with this guy for a ton of berries. And that's certainly going to make things a lot easier against the upcoming gym leaders, the next of which is Bugsy. Now, bug types are neutral against us since we're Psychic type as well, and after I raise my defense, luckily Scyther doesn't get the U-turn crit after Focus Energy, and I can go ahead and raise my defense once again with Iron Defense as Metapod comes out, and it's just a clean 2-hit KO with Iron Head. Then Scyther comes back, and I'm feeling pretty safe, so I go for a pretty decent damage Iron Head as I get crit by a quick attack. Now, fortunately, I return the favor right away with a crit Iron Head, so at least we don't have to deal with Scyther anymore, and Kakuna can't even hit us with Poison Sting, so it's pretty much a joke. But listen, it's not actually Bugsy that I'm afraid of in Azalea Town. See, we have to go up against Jeff once again, and he has Quilava at this point. So naturally, I'm shaking in my boots, and Ghastly, really not a big problem. We can take it out with a super effective Zen Headbutt, but then he sends in the big bad Quilava, so I have to switch out into Heat-Proof Beryllium. And look, Smokescreen was annoying me to no end. You guys know how much I hate evasion-based strategies, but eventually I hit a Hypnosis, and we can use Trick Room and switch out into Palladium. However, Quilava wakes up right away and hits me super hard with Ember, so I have to switch back into Beryllium. I then start missing my Hypnosis, but after a while I actually hit and I can start using Confusion to whittle down Quilava. And seriously, this took absolutely forever, but between Confuse Ray and Confusion, I actually managed to take it down, and I don't think I would be able to win this battle if I didn't have Heat Proof on my Bronzor. And even the Zubat that shouldn't be that difficult to deal with was just kind of annoying with Supersonic, but eventually it went down too, and we can move on to Ilex Forest where we find the Headbutt guy. And now that we've got Headbutt, we can actually run into our next encounter, which is Pineco, but unfortunately we can't use it until level 31 when it evolves into Fortress. I named the Pineco Mercury, and it happens to have a gentle nature, which is absolutely awful. Anyway, it's time for one of the most infamous fights in all of Johto versus Whitney. And my strategy here is to lead out with Beryllium to maybe put Miltank to sleep, but that means we first have to deal with Clefairy. Fortunately though, Clefairy can't really touch us since we're a Steel type, and I'm free to take it out with 4 extra Sensories, but we actually get a crit on the 3rd, so it only takes 3. Then we're up against the Stomp Flinching Miltank, and I do flinch once, but the next turn I manage to set up a Trick Room to try and put this thing to sleep with Hypnosis. Now, of course, when I actually do put it to sleep, it does have a Lumberry, and the Twisted Dimensions return to normal, so I have to put up Trick Room again and put it to sleep, which we managed to do. I then decide that my best course of action is to actually confuse it before we switch out into Palladium. And Palladium does about a fourth with Iron Head, but I decide to set up a couple Iron defenses so that Miltank literally can't touch me. And that's when it starts, the battle of Stomps versus Iron Heads. And I have an Oranberry, but Whitney has 2 Super Potions, so it takes forever, but eventually we take it down and get the 3rd badge. After some crying, of course. I've been waiting for this moment. Behold my friendship with my Pokemon. What Pokemon, dog? Regardless, I know what Pokemon I'm looking for, and it's a Scyther in the bug catching contest that I name Iridium. We'll now judge the Pokemon you've caught. We've chosen the winners. Are you ready for this? Placing 3rd, Pokefan William, who caught a Writhing Venonat. Placing 2nd, Axel, who caught a Wriggling Scyther. Now wait a minute, I get 2nd place again? The winner of the contest is Bugcatcher Dawn, who caught a whopping Scyther. Now you listen here, Bugcatcher Dawn, this isn't over, Anyway, my Wriggling Scyther has a naughty nature and the Technician ability, which is super awesome. Then while we're fighting a Psychic Trainer outside the National Park, Beldum gets to level 20 and evolves into Metang. But that's not the only change to the team, since we get to Route 38 and we can find ourselves a Magnemite, which I catch and name Ferrum. It's got a bashful nature, which is neutral, and we certainly take those, and next I go and buy the Thunder TM, just to power it up a little bit. Hey, stop dancing such a serious dance. Show me something like a hula dance. Dog, I don't think she's that kind of dancer. But next, we have to go up against Jeff once again, and he starts out with his Ghastly, so I go into Beryllium so I can set up a Trick Room and take it out with a single extra sensory. Jeff's next Pokemon is Quilava, and since we have the Trick Room, we do outspeed, which means that we can put it to sleep with a Hypnosis, which we actually managed to hit, and a few extra sensories later, we actually take out Quilava without any trouble. I then switch in Palladium against Zubat, so we have it out against Magnet Pull Magnemite, and we can take it out with a few Iron Heads. I honestly thought that battle would be way more difficult, but next up we got Morty, who also starts out with Ghastly, so I set up my Trick Room again. This means that I can outspeed the next turn and take it out with an extra sensory, but more importantly, as soon as Morty sends in Gengar, we're gonna be able to outspeed and go for Hypnosis, which I also fortunately hit. This gives me the chance to safely switch into Palladium, and Gengar goes for a Hypnosis of its own, but I have the Chesto Berry to wake myself up. And because of Trick Room, we're faster, so we can take it out with a single Zen Headbutt, which is exactly the same thing we do to both of the Haunters after they go for Curse. Easy, boys. After getting our 4th badge, we pass through Olivine City and start making our way to Cianwood. On the way, we fight a whole bunch of swimmers, and Farrah manages to get to level 30 and evolves into Magneton. And after helping poor Amphi in the lighthouse, we can actually get to the Cliff Cave, where we can find our next encounter, a Steelix. I name it Osmium, and it has a naive nature, which doesn't matter that much, but next up, we have to take on the 5th gym leader, Chuck, and his fighting types. So I lead with Beryllium, we don't get flinched by Rock Slide, and I manage to hit a really powerful extra sensory. We then take massive damage from Focus Punch as I set up a Trick Room and outspeed the next turn for a KO. Then we got Poliwrath, and this is why I needed the Trick Room, to be able to outspeed with Hypnosis and switch out into Magneton so that we can safely drop a Thunder on this thing and claim our 5th badge. Fighting types could have been scary, but we've got the Dream Team, and we're going to upgrade it even more by picking up the Choice Specs at the Lake of Rage. After that, we can take out Gyarados in one single hit, and now we need to help out Lance with his Rocket mission, which I regret since Lance just Hyper Beams this guy right away. Lance, are you sure that we're the good guys? Anyway, while fighting Team Rocket, Mercury leveled up to 31, which means it evolves into Fortress and we can actually start using it. And after that, we have to fight our 6th gym fight against what I consider the 7th gym leader, Pryce. So I lead with Specs Magneton and take out Seal with a single Thunder Shock, and then I have to switch out into Palladium as he sends in Piloswine. Luckily, I don't get accuracy dropped by Mud Bomb, and my Citrus Berry keeps me healthy, so I go for an Iron Head and actually get the flinch, and the next one takes it out. Finally, we got Dugong, so I switch out Palladium into Magneton once again, and a Specs Thunder is all we need to beat Pryce. Not exactly the most difficult gym fight. Then before our next gym battle, Beryllium levels up to 33 and evolves into Bronzong, and it's finally time to take on Jasmine and her Steel types. Now, a lot of people might think that Steelix is a Steel and Rock type, but it's actually a Steel and Ground type, so these Thunderbolting Magnemites have no chance. We Rock Polish up to double our speed, take out the first Magnemite, and then it's time to face Jasmine's own Steelix, but we're faster since we doubled our speed, and we just have to spam dig until we take this thing out. And I mean, yeah, Jasmine did decide to be annoying and use a Hyper Potion on Steelix, but eventually we take it out with another 3 digs, and then all we have to face is the final Magnemite, and we just dig it as well. Honestly, I just spammed dig this fight, and we won. Sometimes the simplest strategy is the best one.
Why would anyone want to take over the radio tower?
Listen everyone, if everyone in Johto could just, subscribe, thank you.
Anyway, while we're rescuing the radio tower, we have to take on Jeff once again in his Quilava, but this time Beryllium's evolved and we really have the tools to deal with this thing. In fact, after putting it to sleep, we can just straight up take it out with 2 extra sensories. And this just goes to show how powerful Heatproof is. I definitely didn't need to use an Akka Berry there, I just wanted to be more safe than sorry. The rest of Jeff's team is pretty much a joke, so we take him out easily. Moving on, we get to Blackthorn City where we find our next encounter, a Skarmory. I name it Argentum and it has a lonely nature, which is plus attack minus defense, so kinda good, kinda bad. And while grinding, Ferrum gets to level 40 and actually evolves into Magnezone because of the universal Pokemon randomizer allowing for evolutions. And at this point, it's time for us to take on the final gym battle in the Johto region against the Dragon type user Clair. This time, I decide to lead off with Mercury just to set up some spikes to make it a bit easier to take out the Dragonairs and the Kingdra later on. I do have enough health to live 3 Dragon Rages, so I get all my layers up before I switch out into Ferrum so that I can take out Gyarados with a single hit. Discharge would definitely KO Gyarados either way, but I did give Ferrum the choice specs just for later on when we have to face Kingdra, but for now we have to go up against Dragonair. And after my Lumberry heals the first Thunder Wave off, I do get paralyzed and manage to confuse the Dragonair and take it out with an onslaught of extra sensories. Which means it's Kingdra time and I do get Smokescreen, but I manage to hit Hypnosis through it so that we can switch out into Ferrum. Now after all the spikes damage, there is a roll that actually KOs Kingdra here, but after going for Discharge, I don't end up getting it, but Citrus Berry kinda saves me here since she doesn't go for a full restore. So lastly, we have to go up against another Dragonair, and since we're locked into Discharge, we have to switch out back into Beryllium and do the same thing we did before and just take it out with extra sensories. We then have to take the Elder's Quiz, which Claire can't seem to pass, which means she's answered that violence and cheating are important for raising Pokemon. No wonder she's petty enough to not give us the badge. We then make a quick pit stop over at the Kimono Girl dance studio to see who deserves the title of Miss Johto. It's one of the few titles I haven't claimed yet, and first off is Umbreon, which is pretty annoying, but we can handle it quite well with Mercury, even though we get confused. 3 Bug Bites do the job. Kimono Girl number 2 has an Espeon, which is way less defensive than Umbreon, so it only takes 2 Bug Bites this time. Next up is Flareon, which is obviously the most dangerous for our Steel types, but we can switch into Beryllium with Heatproof to tank Fire Blast fairly well. The first Fire Blast ends up burning me though, so I take a whole ton of damage after I put it to sleep, and I go for extra sensory to try to whittle it down, but it goes for Fire Blast, which we live on just 6 HP, and we retaliate with an extra sensory, which takes it out, which means we don't go down to burn. Next up is Jolteon, so I switch into Osmium to dodge the Thunderbolt, and we can just go for Dig, and luckily we hit through all those double teams. Then we got the final Pokemon, Vaporeon, so I switch into Specs Magnezone and just destroy it with a Discharge to claim the title for myself. The sisters then asked me to film their TikTok dance, which is where I personally draw the line. So I go as far away as I can towards Kanto and pick up the TM for Earthquake before I challenge Jeff for the final time. You see, I plan to humiliate Jeff so bad that he never wants to challenge me again, and how am I gonna do that? Well, you see, I got both Curse and Rock Polish on my Steelix. So as soon as I had enough boosts, it's bye-bye time. Sneasel goes first to an Earthquake, then it's Typhlosion's turn to go down to an Earthquake. Obviously, I can't hit Haunter with an Earthquake, so it goes down to Iron Tail, and the rest just kind of follow suit. Jeff, it's been nice knowing you. See ya never. After defeating another Ginger villain, which Nintendo really seems to like, Lance, are you sure you're not a villain? We play a bunch of Voltorb Flip, an infuriating game that's kinda luck-based to get some TMs. And speaking of TMs, we can go behind the lighthouse in Olivine City and pick up the TM for Charge Beam. And so with all that preparation, it's finally time to take on the Elite Four, the first of which is Will and his Psychic types. Will starts out with Xatu, so I go into Ferris, and he fails at me first as I set up a substitute so I can go for Charge Beam and charge up my special attack. My first Charge Beam doesn't quite get the KO, and Will uses a full restore, but that just gives me another chance to get a special attack boost, which I do. And his next Pokemon is the abomination that is Jinx, so I go for a super effective Magnet Bomb, which doesn't quite get the KO, so the next turn I start going for Charge Beams to boost my special attack even more. And it turns out that one Charge Beam is enough to take out Jinx, and I start to set up even more with the move against Executor. At this point, I have too many boosts for Executor to be able to withstand any more hits, and all the rest of Will's Pokemon are weak to Electric. He's got Slowbro and another Xatu, so I'm in a very good spot here behind my sub to just take home the win. And if you didn't notice already, I actually went into the Elite Four with everyone at level 44 instead of the cap at 47, just to give myself a little bit of an extra challenge since Steel types are pretty strong. So next up is our boy Koga, who graduated from being a gym leader to an Elite Four member. Good job, my dude, but we're gonna have to set up on you and totally destroy you with some Rock Polish Curse action. Ariados is really weak, but it does end up getting us pretty low with Giga Drain before we destroy it with an Earthquake, and Venomoth unfortunately suffers the same fate. Then we got Fortress, which actually ends up living an Earthquake, but it sets up Toxic Spikes, which don't matter at all, and a second one gets a high roll, and we end up taking it out anyway. After that, we got Crobat, which I thought I set up enough Rock Polishes to outspeed, but we don't. Luckily, it goes for Double Team, though, and we can just hit it with an Iron Tail and not miss for the KO. Then finally, we got Muck, which is slow as slop, which just goes down to a super effective Earthquake, and we gotta challenge our boy Bruno. Now, against Bruno is gonna be our Gentem's time to shine, since we have Swords Dance from the game corner, and this thing really can't touch us, so we can set up to +6 and start hitting things with flies. So Hitmontop goes down, and next up is Hitmonlee, which does hit us with a Swagger, which is super dangerous since we're at +6, but we actually managed to break through twice and take it out with a fly. I then stupidly decide to risk it as Hitmonchan goes for a Fire Punch, but we actually snap out of confusion, so Hitmonchan is history as well. Goodbye, Hitmons. Onix is an easy KO with Steel Wing, and Machamp can actually hit us because of No Guard while we're in the air, but it doesn't end up taking us out, so goodbye, Machamp. That's it for Bruno. And so it's come the time for us to face off against Karen, the final Elite Four member, and her Dark types that starts out with Umbreon, so I decide to set up a little bit with Steelix. And as I set up, she sets up a bunch of double teams, which is super annoying, but she predicts my Earthquake and switches into Levitate Gengar, which I clearly miss. But she pulls a Focus Miss, and I can take her out with an Iron Tail. Next up is Houndoom, so I'm threatened out into Beryllium with Heat Proof, and it goes for a Nasty Plot, but I actually managed to hit my Hypnosis. So I switch into Steelix, and it's over if Houndoom isn't asleep twice, but luckily it is, and I can take it out with an Earthquake. That could have been the run right there. Vileplume comes out, so I switch into Skarmory and get paralyzed and fully paralyzed, annoyingly, before I can set up a Swords Dance and just take it out with a Fly after that. I mean, not that I was ever scared of a Vileplume, to be honest, since they have all Steel types, but then Karen misplays and goes for Whirlwind, so I'm faster with my paralyzed Skarmory, and I can just take it out in one fly. Finally, all she has left is her Umbreon, which confuses me, and I hurt myself in confusion, so I decide to switch Argentum out, and I switch into Osmium, which was my original strategy for Umbreon, and I go for a few curses before I try to hurt it with Earthquake, but it has so many double teams that it takes a few turns, but eventually, even Umbreon goes down. I mean, it does try to confuse me, but I carried Lumberry just for that reason, and I managed to take it out with a final Earthquake, and now all we have to do is beat the champion. But before fighting Lance, I have a couple of rare candies in my bag, so I give the first one to Metang, so it evolves into Metagross, which is a huge power boost, and I give the second one to Magnezone just for that extra power. And even though Steel types resist dragons, this is actually a really tricky fight to prepare for. I was not sure if we were going to get through this, but Beryllium starts by not flinching and actually hitting a Hypnosis. Then we set up Trick Room, switch into Ferrum, and go for a Charge Beam, which doesn't quite take it out, but we need a special attack boost to take out Charizard with a Discharge. And so since we got the boost on the first Charge Beam, I decided to go for Discharge for the 100% accuracy, and this means that we can actually take out Charizard in one hit as well, and outspeed because of the Trick Room. Then we got the first Dragonite, the Fire Blast one, and it goes for Safeguard as I go for Discharge for some damage, and since we haven't taken any damage yet and I do have Aqua Berry, I do tank a Fire Blast and go for a second Discharge. But now that we've burned our Aqua Berry, I have to switch out into Beryllium, which also has Aqua Berry, so I don't take that much damage from the first Fire Blast, and then it goes for Outrage for some reason, which doesn't do that much, and I can set up my Trick Room. Then since I know Dragonite's locked into Outrage, we can safely switch into Palladium, who resists, and take out the Dragonite with an Iron Head. Then we got the Thunder Dragonite, which does paralyze us. We can get some good damage with a couple of Iron Heads, but Thunder actually gets me down to such low health that I need to switch out. And as I go into Osmium, I expected Lance to go for a Thunder, but he goes for a Full Restore instead, which isn't that great. But the only two moves this thing can use against me are Dragon Rage and Hyper Beam, and I resist both, so I decide to set up a bit with Curse. I then hit Dragonite down to about 25% health, and I miss 3 Iron Tails in a row. I mean, I know it's not that accurate, but come on, and the fourth one actually ends up taking it out. Then we got the third and final Dragonite, which misses a Blizzard as we switch into Fortress, and we actually dodge the Thunder Wave with our Lumberry the first time, and we can get off a couple of Rock Tombs to have this thing's speed. After that, I do try to go for a third, which we actually miss instead of getting paralyzed for, but since Dragonite has to recharge, I decide to switch out, and I go into Ferrum, who can launch a couple of discharges, and we actually don't flinch from the Dragon Rush, so that's enough to take out the third Dragonite, and all we have to contend with is Aerodactyl. And the thing is, Aerodactyl doesn't have Earthquake in this game, so I can pretty much go into Osmium, freely set up a Curse, and then just go for an Iron Tail to take this thing out. And so that's it for Lance, and I'm honestly impressed that I could get through all of Johto without a single death, but I guess that's Steel types for you. So in this same video, I've decided that I'm going to try to take on Kanto and Red as well. But first, we got to just give a salute to all the Steel types that got us this far. Thank you guys. Let's move on to Kanto. So that's exactly what we do. We board the SS Aqua. And right away, a seasick dude barfs on my shoes. Oh, come on, those were brand new! We're also forced by the captain to play hide and seek with this girl. Like, come on! Treat a champion with a bit more respect. We do, however, receive the metal coat for Scyther and arrive in Vermilion City. I then try to go to Cerulean Gym when, hey, where are you going? I mean, probably the worst place to hide in public is in between two people who'd rather be alone. And speaking of people who don't want to be alone, in fact, she wants to be in a lot of her own company, we gotta fight Janine next, and she's got poison types, which is gonna be super easy since we're immune with all of our steel types. We do shake off confusion with a Lumberry, but it takes a second Zen Headbutt that gets a high roll to take out Crobat in one hit. Weezing also ends up living a Zen Headbutt, so we take it out with a Bullet Punch the next turn, but after that, we can pretty much just clean up with Zen Headbutts all across the board. This fight was never gonna be difficult. The most difficulty this fight caused is the fact that the level cap is at level 50, which meant that I had to go in a little bit under-leveled against the Elite Four. Anyway, after the fight, Iridium got to level 29 with the experience share, so I gave it a rare candy while it was holding the metal coat to evolve into Scizor. But since we saved the power plant, we can play the Pokeflute on the Pokegear and wake up the Snorlax, which is only really important since we can use Thief with Scizor and steal its leftovers. So next up, we have to face off against the military man himself, Lieutenant Surge, and since we have a ground type in Osmium, well, you guys can kind of expect where this one's going. I basically just set up a ton of curses against Raichu. I do end up getting paralyzed from static since I misclicked and went for Crunch instead of Earthquake, but it doesn't really matter in the end since everything else is weak to Earthquake and they can't really touch me with anything whatsoever. And I mean, yeah, he does try to be annoying by using Double Team on both of his Electrodes, kind of like with Raichu, but it just prolongs the inevitable. Also, just as a side note, have we ever been told what Lieutenant Surge's first name is? Like Steve Surge? Thaddeus Surge? Let me know. Anyway, pretty much back to back with Lieutenant Surge, we have to go up against Brock and his rock types, which is another type where we have a great matchup, so I go for a few Swords Dances before firing off an onslaught of Bullet Punches, and it is a massacre. And I gotta say, it's so awesome to be able to use Scizor. It's only possible through the Universal Pokemon Randomizer, but it is such an awesome Pokemon that I'm glad I get the chance. We then go back to Cerulean City where we ruin Misty's date, and ruining dates kind of seems to be the theme in Cerulean. However, she forgives us and graciously agrees to fight us in a gym battle, and we've got the perfect thing for her. After not getting confused by Water Pulse, we destroy Golduck with a Specs Discharge, and obviously we can't hit the Quagsire that comes out afterwards, so we have to switch out. So I go into Argentum, who sets up a few Swords Dances as Quagsire raises its special defense with Amnesia, which doesn't matter, and I can just take it out with a Fly. Her next Pokemon is Lapras, and it's actually tanky enough to survive a stab +4 Fly from Skarmory. So after she goes for a full restore, I hit her for some damage with Night Slash and go for another Fly to take out Lapras, and finally she only has her Starmie left. So I tank a non-stab neutral Ice Beam fairly well and hit it with a Night Slash for super effective damage, and that's it for Misty. Anywho, all this champion business is pretty stressful, so I go to the Sylph Company since I hear they're giving out free Pokeballs, but when I get there, the elevator's out of order. So I make some small talk with a guard instead. So, Mr. Sylph Person, what's your favorite James Bond movie?
Oh, it's definitely gotta be Spectre.
Huh, I'm more of a Casino Royale fan myself. Anyway, while we're in Saffron City, we might as well take on our next challenge, Sabrina and her psychic types, and I lead off with Iridium once again and go for an Agility. The next turn, I go for a Swords Dance as Espeon goes for Calm Mind, and at this point, I'm set up to one-hit KO and outspeed all of Sabrina's Pokemon, but I mean, look, Steel types were introduced to nerf psychic types, so this makes sense.
This gym is great, it's full of strong trainers.
Yeah, nobody's forgotten your original line, you creep. Filthy old man aside though, it's time for us to take on Erika and her grass types, and she starts out with Jump Left, so I lead off with Skarmory. And even though I get leech seeded, it can't really touch me, so I go ahead and set up a couple of Swords Dances once again and go for a Fly as it goes for U-turn, so I hit the incoming Blossom and take it out. Then Jump Left makes its return, but it goes for U-turn once again, so I hit my Fly on Victory Bell this time and obviously take it out. After it goes down, Erika sends out Jump Left once again, but this time it doesn't go for U-turn, it sets up the Sun as we go for Fly, and it tries to U-turn us, but then we take it out finally. And Erika's last Pokemon is her signature Tangela, but it just goes for an Ancient Power, doesn't even get the boost, and gets absolutely bopped by a Fly. Erika, you never stood a chance. After the fight, we have to get to Cinnabar Island, but I run into this old man who asked me if he ever taught me to catch a Pokemon. Oh, I certainly remember, and your explanation was missing no details. And when we get to Pallet Town, I make sure to get Cameron to take a picture of the whole squad while it's still intact outside the famous house. And it turns out that Cinnabar is nothing but rubble and ash, so we have to fight Blaine in his new gym in the Seafoam Islands. And I mean, just look at this man's head shine, what a beacon of hope. Anyway, Blaine leads with Macargo, so I outspeed with quad effective Earthquake from Osmium and take it out, and the rest of the gym is kinda scary. I switch into Beryllium as Magmar misses an overheat, then it sets up the sun and I actually manage to hit a Hypnosis, and after that I go for a Confuse Ray just to up my chances a little bit if this thing wakes up, because overheat in the sun is a scary thing to think about. I then set up my Trick Room to outspeed and I go for a Psychic, but Magmar actually stays asleep and a second Psychic takes it out. So all we have to worry about now is Rapidash, and I miss my Hypnosis as it hits me with a crit overheat. Luckily my Aqua Berry reduces the damage, and the next turn I miss my Hypnosis again, but Rapidash misses an overheat. Rapidash uses Bounce, so I miss a Hypnosis, and when it lands I miss another one. It then gets me down to 15 HP with an overheat, but I actually managed to hit my next Hypnosis and put it to sleep so I can switch out, and it only takes one Earthquake for Osmium to take this thing out and win us the badge, but that was way too close for comfort, and honestly, I deserve to miss a few Hypnoses after how lucky I've been in the rest of the run. So now we're getting ready for Blue's gym, and I run into a Fire Blast Tauros, which luckily doesn't do that much since its special attack isn't too high, but wow, you get surprised sometimes. But it's finally time for our last gym battle of this challenge against Blue from Pallet Town. Now I know that Blue starts out with Executor, so I lead with Iridium, who can outspeed with a quad effective X-Scissor to take it out. Blue then goes into Arcanine, which is quad effective against us, so we have to switch out into Heat-Proof Beryllium. And even though we have Heat-Proof, we honestly don't tank a Flare Blitz well at all, and after Leftovers, we can live a second one on 4 HP and put it to sleep with Hypnosis. Honestly, that was once again way too close for comfort, but just like with Rapidash, we can switch out into Osmium and take out Arcanine with a single Earthquake. Then we gotta go up against Machamp, so I switch into my Skarmory, but he hits a Dynamic Punch, which gets me confused and below half health, so I swap out into Metagross. Now, Metagross isn't exactly in the best position since Zen Headbutt isn't 100% accurate, but we do manage to hit it and take out the Machamp in one hit. Up next is Rhydon, and it might seem a bit weird to stay in since it has Earthquake, but we do have a Shucka Berry to reduce the damage, and we can just take it out with a couple of Iron Heads. But after that, we get our attack dropped by Gyarados, so we swap out into Ferrum, who actually has the Choice Scarf, so even though Gyarados goes for a Dragon Dance, we can outspeed and kill it with a Discharge. And this actually puts us in the perfect position for Blue's last Pokemon, Pidgeot, which we can't take out with a single Discharge, but Citrus Berry heals it up to the point where he doesn't heal, and we can take it out with a second. So that's it for the gym challenge, and I'm pretty surprised that we got through this without any deaths so far. Let's see if we can keep that streak going against the final fight against Red. And the Pokemon that I'm most scared of on Red's team is obviously Charizard, so I taught the Stealth Rock TM we just picked up to Osmium so that we can use it the first turn and just take out Pikachu with Earthquake the second. So it's actually perfect that Red leads out with Pikachu, because that gives me the free chance to set up the rocks without any danger of getting hit by a powerful Thunderbolt. Next is Blastoise, and the only thing I have to take a Focus Blast okay is Bronzong, and I can try to put it to sleep with Hypnosis. Unfortunately though, I miss my Hypnosis and I get hit by a second Focus Blast, and the next turn I miss and Focus Miss misses as well. But after another Focus Miss, I put it to sleep so I can safely swap out into Ferrum. Now I know that I can take one non-crit Focus Blast from Blastoise with Magnezone, but luckily it does its thing, misses, and I can take out Blastoise with a Choice Specs Discharge. But then we got the big baddie Charizard, who takes half of its health to Stealth Rock damage before we switch out to Osmium to tank a Flare Blitz. And unfortunately, there's not much I can do. Osmium has to go down to a Flare Blitz, so we get the first death of the run. Osmium, you will be remembered as a hero always. But now that Charizard is in such low health, I expect Red to use a full restore so we can do a cheeky move and send in Ferrum and go for a Specs Discharge to take it out free. Sometimes the AI makes the worst possible move for itself, but next up is Venusaur, so we have to switch out, and even though we get put to sleep, there's really nothing that this Venusaur can do to touch us. The worst thing it can do is probably Frenzy Plant, and that really won't hurt us at all. And on top of that, it even has to recharge the next turn, so I can sit here all day, but eventually I do wake up and I can take out Venusaur with a single Zen Headbutt from Palladium. Now second to last, we got Snorlax, and this thing is really bulky, so I devised a strategy involving Iridium. Now Steel types can't get poisoned by Toxic Orb, so I gave it to Iridium, and I can use the move Fling to fling it onto Snorlax since I can't get the move Toxic. I then decide to go for a Sword Stance to set up my attack a little bit as it gets whittled down by Toxic, and after that it's at enough of a range where I can take it out with a single Bullet Punch. I'm not exactly sure if I needed to use that Fling strategy, but I thought it was kind of fun, and next up we gotta face Red's final Pokemon, Lapras. And I decide to see if +2 Bullet Punch is enough to take out Lapras after Stealth Rock, but I just barely don't take it out, and Iridium gets taken down by a Brine. Iridium, you were a true hero all the way through. Luckily though, we we got the rest of our team in the back, and we can send in Specs Magnezone and take out the Lapras with a single discharge, even after the full restore, and that makes us the true champion of Kanto and Johto. Gotta say, this steel run was so much fun to make. I love HeartGold and SoulSilver, and you guys definitely need to let me know. What do you think about using these event and Pokewalker Pokemon in HeartGold and SoulSilver? It makes a lot more runs possible if you do this, so if you want to see more runs like this in the future, definitely let me know. Otherwise, you can give me suggestions of any game and type combination you want to see in the comments down below. And listen, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button, and if you got all the way to the end here, why not leave it a like? And if you get the time, I definitely recommend you check out the YouTuber Sylph Spectre, who made a little cameo in this video. He makes awesome Hardcore Nuzlocke runs like this over on his channel. So check out his videos and leave him a comment saying that Antler Boy sent you. But for now, guys, that's it for me, and until we see each other next time, have a good one.